Today I'm going wild with a conversion of Aethon Shaan, this guy from the Raven Guard, the new jump lord that they have. And I did a poll both on YouTube and in my Discord to ask you guys what you would like to see me do. And it was pretty close between a Night Lord's jump lord and just go wild. And I didn't specify, intentionally I didn't specify what go wild meant, because I wanted to be a little bit free in going wild. But don't worry, the Night Lord jump lord is coming. I already have this guy, the Abhorrent Gore Warden. I mean, look at that. This is practically the same pose. It should be very easy to make a really cool Night Lord's jump lord out of this. Maybe slightly corrupted, slightly mutated, how I like my Night Lords to be. But today I'm going wild and I'm going to take a lot of inspiration from the Aztecs. Eagle warriors, to be precise. Those are warriors that dress up kind of like eagles, lots of feathers and lots of nice colors and so on. And they are often connected to the sun. I'm sure there are people in the comments who can explain to you exactly what Aztec Eagle Warriors are, but I just want to have some reference to the aesthetic of it. And I just like Aztecs. I like the weapons, I like the crude imagery, the bloodthirsty ideas that we have of them. They make a good villain, especially in Warhammer 40k. So I got these wings over here, and these come from the Khemri, the Tomb Kings. They have these Carrion Vultures, these massive vultures that are undead, and they come with these nice nasty wings. There's lots of bones and stuff sticking in there, bits of flesh hanging off the bones and some ratty feathers. And I have these left over because I bought a box. There's 3 of them in there, and I'm going to use 2 of them as my spawns for my Thousand Suns army. You know, nice Tomb King flavored spawns. I'm just going to see how this guy looks when he is on the rock with these wings. There, not bad at all. I think it fits pretty well. The wing just goes right over the rock, doesn't even touch it, so I don't have to be too careful once I get everything in place. But I think I'm just going to need a lot of green stuff to get the wings attached to his body, so I'm going to start working on that next. Now, before I can stick those wings in, I think I have to get rid of these little bars that he has on his jetpack, just because they block the space where I can attach the wings to the Mini. Then a glob of green stuff in there, and I push the wing in. And I know green stuff is not a good substitute for glue, but how else am I going to get these wings onto this model? I could pin them through the green stuff, then fill up the gaps, but that sounds like a whole lot of work that isn't really necessary. So a lot of green stuff, I'm sure it will hold. There, bit of sculpting and fiddling with the pose later, and he is ready to leave to cure. Just a little thing, I made this wing touch the rock, so I can glue it over there with some super glue, give him a little bit more stability. Maybe even pin it, but I don't think it's necessary. But all of this green stuff, that needs to cure. I need to wait a couple hours, maybe a day. So let's start working on his weapon next. And I'm going to give him this weapon over here. And yes, this sprue is primed black, because about 25 years ago, when I was a little fogger, I painted stuff on the sprue. It wasn't as strange as it is now. So this guy is black, and I'm gonna have to scrape stuff clean if I want to attach it to the Mini. But I don't want to give him that lizard arm. It's way too skinny, way too thin anyway. No, this is an Eagle Warrior, so let's give him a bird arm from the Thousand Suns Exalted Sorceress kit. But those wings, they will block that staff, so I gotta clip this off a little bit and see if I can turn it back into a smaller hand weapon. Makes a bit more sense as well, you know. The Aztecs, they usually fought to capture prisoners, not necessarily to kill and slay everything. So making it a shorter weapon, more like a club to knock people out, makes sense. Yeah, that's a good enough pose. I just gotta attach the weapon head, and I just drilled a hole in there so I can shove the shaft right in there, because there's no way I could pin this in any other way. And this way at least it's strong enough to be able to play with this Mini, because that's what I make Minis for, to play with. And then I just put it in the right place, like that, and it's time for the other arm, and that's gonna be a bit of an issue. See, on the regular model, he has this claw, and that is hooking into the rock, like you can see over there. But that means that his hand is nowhere near that rock. So if I just make his hand stick out like that, he can't grasp it unless he has an unnaturally long arm. Maybe a tentacle or something, but I don't really want to do that. Another thing I would like to do is to give him a shield, because that really completes that image of the Aztec warriors, because they always have shields. But that doesn't really work either, again, because the wing gets in the way and the rock gets in the way, and the shield would be kind of stuck here under his shoulder. It would just look weird. So I'm going for a third option, and that's to lean into this concept of capturing prisoners that's so important for Aztec warfare. So I got this Space Marine arm over here that comes with a row of pouches with grenades in them. I'm just going to snip that off and see if I can give him some shackles to carry around. And how these chains are going to hang down once they're on the mini isn't so important. First I just got to make it look right, as if he's holding it in his hand. So I have 2 pieces of chain that are about the same length. And 1 piece I'm going to glue here into his palm, and a piece here on top of his hand, and I drilled a little hole into his fist so it looks like the chain comes out of it. Now that arm goes in there, and there's a little bit of green stuff just behind that strip of cloth that he has. I just got to position the hand right, but the chains I'm going to leave for now. I feel like it needs something at the end of that chain, like a lock like this, or this set of keys. But I also got these weights over here. These come from the Night Haunt, and I think it could work to turn it into bolas. You know, the stuff on the 2 weights on a string that you turn around, throw at something to catch it. And it would make it sort of more magical, maybe some artifact used to chain demons or something like that. I think that would be pretty cool. It just doesn't have to be demons, could be a Terminator as well. Just chain your opponent into a sort of magical chain. But regardless what I glue at the end of it, I have to wait until the whole miniature is in place and painted, and the chains can sort of drape onto this bit of rock properly. And then I can attach the locks or the bits over here. And maybe I'll just cut it shorter. I still don't know. I don't know how I'm going to drape the chain onto the miniature. So I'm going to leave that until the very, very, very end. What's left for him, apart from a bunch of little decorations and so to reinforce the whole Aztec theme and the whole jailer theme, is his head, of course. And I got options. Well, first of all, when you look for Aztec warriors online, you get all kinds of photos of ancient drawings of them, where they basically just have a face and a big feathery headdress. So, sometimes with a head of a bird sort of on top of it, like big masks. Sometimes just a headdress with lots of feathers. But we're making Space Marines, we're not making proper Aztec warriors. So I got a bunch of options over here. I got, first of all, this helmet over there. That's a Space Marine helmet with a much longer beak, from the Thousand Suns, of course. But I also got this head over here, which is just a bird. A little too mutated for my taste for this guy. Normally I would do it, but I feel like I would like to make him look like he could be a renegade. He could be a sort of lone Space Marine zipping around, dropping down, capturing demons, or sort of entrapping them into a chain and then zipping off again, just leaving them there for the locals to kill the demon. Who knows? So too much mutation is not an option. Then I got these Sekitar robots, the ugly ones that the Thousand Suns got last time, and they have this sort of hood that goes over a ball, and it's a weird sort of, I'll show a photo so you get an idea. And I think that could work with the Space Marine head and then have that hood sort of go over it. And by the way, if you want to see some cooler Sekitar robots, I got a video on my channel where I kitbash 2 different styles. One sort of Tomb King style and one of sort of Bone Construct style. But I've also got some bits left over from this guy. This is the Saurus Astrolith banner bearer, and I turned him into a master of executions for my world eaters. This guy over here. So with every man he slays, every Space Marine he chops down with that weapon, he powers up the portal, and then bloodletters come onto the battlefield. Really cool for my Demonkin detachment whenever I play that. But I got that headdress left over, and I think that if I get rid of this center part over here, I try not to damage it, because it would be cool to stick on his body, maybe as a crotch flap like many Space Marines have. Then I think I can fit it onto the emo head. And I like the emo head because it has this lock of hair, which could be painted as a bit of feathers as well. Give him a bit more of a bird vibe with that emo hair. And then I just stick it on there, and I think that would get a lot more of this Aztec flavor onto the Mini. Like this. And yeah, it gets a little bit in the way of the vents of the jetpack, but don't let this sort of practical things bother you when you're kitbashing. This will look pretty cool, I think. And I can always paint the back as if it's getting damaged or something like that. But the headdress, I think this will work. I just gotta get rid of the little poster body and glue the thing in place. And I just noticed that on that sprue of the headdress, I have some kind of crotch flap here that would go onto the lizard. So I don't have to worry too much about the piece that I've left over. That can become decoration of the base or the pillar that he's standing on. But this goes straight there where his belt buckle used to be. And then we're painting, and I added a little bit of detail here on his belt. That's a chain with a lock and a key hanging off there, just to reinforce the whole jailer theme that I have going. Like he's hunting in the jungle, trying to find find demons or something like that to capture or to chain up or somehow banish with those chains. And of course I'm painting him like a lizardman, at least the armor for sure. I like the teal, but I also want to reference a little bit more of the Meso-American art. There's usually just pretty clear yellow, blue, red in there. And I think some teal armor with red shoulder pads, maybe some little red details here and there, maybe some red markings on him. And then of course gold for all of the clear lizardman bits that are stuck on him. Like that. So the colors are blocked in. I think I need to add some detail to the gold, to add some red and blue in there as well, just to get a little bit more variety. Just pure gold doesn't look that good, although of course it needs some shading and some highlighting and so on and so forth. But first, I'm going to work on the wings and the feathers that he has, and I just want to paint this as if it is a bit of an eagle, and I don't mean the oversized seagull that the Americans seem to love so much, but an actual eagle who's more like brown and has some sort of white strip of feathers at the bottom and doesn't have a white head. There, kind of like that. The colors are blocked in, the rest, the white, that's still bone and fleshy bits. And I did a little bit on the front as well, gave the crown a little bit more color, and I'm quite happy with how he is now. But it's time to make him suffer, because in my corner of the 40k universe, great power comes with great suffering, and this clearly is a very powerful Space Marine, so he has to be made to suffer quite a bit. So I'm working with a bunch of enamels from Villainy Inks, first some Colia Green and some Caput Mortem to start getting in this sort of bluish, greenish, sickly flesh here in his wings. That's pretty ghoulish green, and I'm gonna add some more red in there with some Carrion Crimson, and I'm also gonna use this to paint his arm here on this side, just to make it look like it's more infected rather than mutated. Like, yeah, something's going wrong, but it's not really accepted by his body. Yeah, doesn't that look painful? It still needs a little bit of work. I think I need to add a little bit more reds and a little bit more blue, maybe tinted, like there's some bruises here in the flesh, especially the really fleshy bits over there. Some more yellow on the bones. It needs a few more passes, but I just want to keep going with the rest of the mini. And I'm going to give him a little bit of a grime wash with some streaking grime. And I'm using streaking grime instead of the Villainy Ink stuff, because streaking grime is a little bit of green. And of course, this guy is in a jungle environment, so it would make sense if there's sort of aggressive warp-fueled mosses and algae around him that maybe grow over his armor, even though he's wearing it and flying around with it. Yeah, like this nasty jungle overgrowing this rock, and I got a little buddy sitting here behind the pillar, hiding away from him, nicely camouflaged with all the rust over there. I think it needs a little bit more color over here, maybe a nice flower, like a jungle flower, and maybe I can add some color to the vine that is sort of growing up over that thing, but I want to put him in place before I do any of that, and I still got a bunch of painting to do. First of all, I think I made a mistake with these strips of cloth, whatever they are. I wanted to paint them kind of like purity seals to still give him a little bit of protection against all that chaos corruption around him, and so I went with white, but I think I should just paint them red. But I'm first gonna go highlight the armor a bit with some of those base colors I used, in particular Baharot blue, and it saves me the time of wiping off all of the streaking grime that I used, because this just paints right over it. And then just a little bit of subtle rust, because like I said, it's a corrosive jungle where he's flying around in. Oh, it finally clicked. Of course, if he's in a jungle, it's overgrown, there's plants everywhere, disease, flies buzzing, mosquitoes coming to give you malaria, or whatever space malaria they fly around with on this planet. He's of course on a Nurgle infested planet, a jungle that is grown by some Nurgle gardener. That's why his wings are starting to rot and decay as he's flying around. That's why his hand is getting infected. That's why his armor is getting so rusty, especially here on the back. You know, anything that gets hot, it damages the paint a little bit, damages the metal a little bit, and immediately that Nurgle rot sets in. You know, maybe he's flying through the garden that Dr. Dribbles, my massive demon prince of Nurgle, has grown here. And so my Shaan knows he's been struck. He knows he's infected with Nurgle's diseases. And he knows there's no saving him. Death is coming for him. And as death is coming for him, so is he going after his prey. Sure to find it and sure to hunt him down. One final prey, one final hunt, one final flight for this noble eagle warrior before returning to the final embrace of the Emperor. For only in death does duty end. And I really enjoyed making this kitbash. I set out to make a cool eagle warrior inspired by Aztec and sort of Meso-American Mayan lore. And I think it worked out pretty well. I like the twist that I made in the end of the story where he's not actually mutating, but he's infected. Nurgle's rot has a hold of him. He is dying. His wings are deteriorating. Once he was a majestic eagle swooping through the canopy of the jungle looking for his prey, hunting them down, chaining them with those bolas that he has, with the locks and the keys hanging off his belt, hunting demons, hunting monsters, who knows. And now he's dying. He knows he's dying, but he keeps going. One final hunt, one final prey, one last service to the Emperor. If you enjoyed this video, maybe check out Dr. Dribble's next, the demon that I imagine is responsible for the decay of my Shaan.